where they're just going to record everything. And this video right now, as we chat on Zoom, is probably being stored somewhere in a server in some NSA facility for future use.
The totality of like everybody against you, like that is a very lonely and scary and depressing feeling.
Well, and I would argue that a lot of people that participate in these cancel movements haven't felt that, and they
obviously not.
Yeah, and they don't have any empathy.
How did you do police work in the 70s and the 80s and before that? You know, like when you didn't have cameras everywhere, like did you just actually have to use critical thinking or something? Like,
in fact, there was a secret military base discovered because people there were using a fitness app that tracked your location.
And this really does tie in with Big Brother because, you know, like a lot of it is like kind of like the points we've been driving home. There's missing context. You know, there's missing, yeah, there's a lot of inference, but you just don't have all the information to accurately deduce what's going on. Big Brother is watching you, watching you. Right. Welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy. I am Eric Rosenblatt, and we would love it if you would like and share this video and subscribe to the channel. You know, it makes the algorithm happy and helps us out. Yeah. And I'm Casey Rochford, and remember, fellas, if you can't be handsome, at least be handy. Oh wait, wrong show.
Red green. Yes. If the women don't find you handsome, at least they should find you handy, right? Duct tape.
We are kind of like Harold though with the keytar thing. Yeah. Anyway, we do write our own music, and it is at the end of the episode. But you can also get it for yourself at patreon.com/ksmvidcast, or you can just head over to ksmvidcast.com and see all the cool swag and all the other places that you can find the music, including Spotify and iTunes. So I see you're wearing a flak jacket or something. Like, what's going on here?
Wait, they're on to us. They're out there watching us. Oh my God. Just kidding.
The nosy neighbor.
Yeah. No, it's the government. The government's watching us. Yeah. I would put a tinfoil hat on, but I'm out of foil. Thanks,
Obama.
It's my own fault. I just didn't go shopping. So I figured, oh yeah, this is a level 3A Kevlar body armor for those wondering.
This show is pretty dangerous. So
well, you know, they're watching. They're out there watching us.
This is going to be an episode where
they know everything we do. Anyway, but yeah, I figured it might be interesting. This is probably something. Well, this is something that's been on our, I guess, bucket list of episodes for a while now, or a little while, and it's something that I think comes up from time to time and concerns a lot of people. Is Big Brother right? Like
Mhm.
1984 style, like always watching you kind of thing, surveillance state sort of stuff.
Yeah, like like what I've noticed that's become kind of uh norm, I guess, is like crime shows, for instance. One of their tropes is uh basically like taking the surveillance footage from some place in the vicinity of a crime, just like walking in and being like, hand over your tapes, and reviewing it all, and trying to catch the bad guy that way. And it's like, how did you do police work in the 70s and the 80s and
Yeah.
before that, like when you didn't have cameras everywhere? Like, did you just actually have to use critical thinking or something? Like,
Yeah, like proper detective work. Which, that might, just like all technology, it can definitely be a crutch that people come to rely on far too much. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's a useful tool for solving crimes and stuff like that. And I I feel better about the state subpoenaing video from various private businesses, right? Like their own security footage to try to solve some kind of mystery or crime, right?
yeah, and they go
Uh,
through the proper channels and stuff. I mean, it's
yeah,
above board, but it's like you said, it's a crutch. There's a problem inherent to that people don't think about, and that's like, I think there's kind of a critical thinking analogy, like about murder, right? There's like two windows in front of you, and you see two people walking by, and then they pass behind the wall, and then there's one person walking by, and that person that didn't show up in the other window died somewhere between those two windows, and you assume that the one that did not die did it because that's all you could see. And
yeah.
there's a whole lot that you could not see in that interim that could have happened.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah. The whole critical thinking aspect, like, what else could happen?
yeah.
It things aren't always as obvious as they seem. And here's something that really troubles me: the development of deep fakes and things like that. How you could take basically any person and make up a fake video, like Running Man style, where you completely fabricate a person doing something awful and implicate them, and broadcast it on TV, and everybody's like, oh yeah, what a murderer, you're a rapist, you're a terrible person, or whatever. And like, simply because they saw the video. But it's like, you can't trust your eyes anymore. You have to be, actually, as technology improves, you have to be far more critical than ever at this point. But
Yeah.
we're told to just you know believe what everybody says, believe the authorities, and move along, citizen.
Yeah. I mean, so the other end of that, though, the devil's advocate to that, is that it is very telling. Especially like the more footage you have, the more corroborating witness statements that you have, things like that. Um, More often than not, I would say that a crime captured at least in part on video probably actually did happen that way. Um,
Well, and that's something, like, I'm a big advocate of body cams for like
yeah.
police and law enforcement and whatnot. Dash cams for just everybody, dude. They're like $50 now. Why do you not have a dash cam? The amount of loss you could have from that, it just doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
But yeah, certainly, like when you get multiple angles from different people, it becomes more and more indisputable what actually happened, and that's kind of unprecedented. That, like, we live in a crazy time where everything's recorded.
Yeah.
Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok and everything, like everybody is broadcasting moments in their life all the time, always recording it and
Mhm.
sharing it.
Yeah. So I guess as far as the Big Brother angle goes, though, do you think that there's actually like active uh, breaches of your privacy being committed by some force of power, government or otherwise, or whatever? You think there's something nefarious going on, like with just the average Joe, or you think it would actually take some kind of like suspicious circumstances for someone to start looking into your private life?
Yes. Um, well, the
Yes, to
stuff that,
which?
well, all the above, I guess. Sort of. I mean, the stuff that Edward Snowden uh, released to the public kind of gives a good indication of what not only the like psychology behind what the state is doing, like their kind of goal there, but also the tools they have and how they use them. And it's sort of like this kind of dragnet philosophy where they're just going to record everything. And this video right now, as we chat on Zoom, is probably being stored somewhere in a server in some NSA facility for future use. And so every bit of traffic is captured and stored.
Please use our videos, because if you listen to what we're saying, you'll probably improve things quite a bit.
Well, yeah, and God damn it, buy the albums. Come on.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, NSA agents, buy our albums.
Yeah, I mean,
jeez,
you're sitting there looking at a screen all day long. What are you going to listen to? You're going to listen to some kind of pop music, Cardi B or something. You're going to listen to ALTAiR and Casey Rochefort and Eric Rosenblatt. Like, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, if they're screwing us up the butt, they should at least use lube, and the lube is our music.
So. Okay, that's a soundbite. Oh man, this is a very complex topic, and I don't think there's a simple answer, or I don't think it's a very simple thing. When you're dealing with complex systems, bureaucracies and stuff like that, like they develop sort of a mind of their own, and so it's like I don't ascribe to the whole mustache twirling evildoers. Like there's a secret cabal of people like we're gonna take over the world. I don't know, but when you get enough people together, they could in fact perform the same actions without the same intentions, for the greater good, or for the best of intentions. Like they think they're helping people or stopping terrorism or whatnot, and it just gets out of hand. And that's kind of what I've seen with this kind of stuff. The Snowden files, I guess we could call them. It started with reasonable, good intentions, but it got carried away, and now it's the point where it's almost taken on a life of its own, and lost sight of the goal, and lost sight of individuality and the Constitution, I guess. Not that really means anything, but I mean, it's at least sort of a baseline, right? Like it's sort of something we should, like a foundation, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know.
Maybe a compass. Yeah, like
well, yeah, exactly.
Kind of the direction we should be going, but not necessarily like word for word.
Yeah.
I mean, I all in all, I think our technological advances are a great thing. There's definitely the ability to be tracked quite a bit more easily than there used to be. I mean, GPS in a phone, there's a lot of people that think, oh, if I don't have a GPS in my phone, I can't be tracked. Well, they were tracking cell phones before GPS was incorporated into them. So if you have a cell phone, guess what? You're trackable, like
Yeah.
it's
Well,
something that broadcasts a signal, and you just gotta kind of take it with a grain of salt, like how much you, as a particular individual speck on this giant planet, are actually being surveilled at any one given moment. Unless you're doing something shady, then yeah, go ahead and worry about whether or not you're being tracked,
well, that's
because
sort of
you actually have a reason to worry.
If you have nothing to hide sort of argument, which we'll have to address, I think. That's a good point, that it's a double-edged sword. There's good things and bad things to all technologies, even going way back, even fire, right? Fire can keep you warm, it can cook your food, perform all kinds of functions and stuff but it can also burn down a building and kill people. So, and that's one of the oldest technologies. And so it's all a matter of how it's used. It does kind of trouble me that people today are so open with their information. Like, we freely give away our privacy, posting things on Facebook, check-ins and all this stuff, like videos of your kids and GPS navigation stuff, which does definitely store and send information somewhere, and you could go who knows where. I mean, it might go to the US government, it might go to China. In fact, there was a secret military base discovered because people there were using a fitness app that tracked your location. So, that's the whole thing. It's like, it depends on how it's used. And, yeah, you do have to be kind of careful and thoughtful about it, like, I guess.
Yeah.
And not just completely cavalier, like, oh yeah, well, this is just an app and it does something I want. Well, there's a price to pay for everything. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch, as they say. Like Facebook, how is Facebook making so much money? It's because they sell your information.
Yeah, I mean, it's information that you choose to give out. It's how you display yourself.
Well, that is true. Now, though, they do collect a lot more information than the things that you post. They collect information based on behavior, like what you choose to like and click on, how long you linger on a particular thing before moving on. All that stuff is collected. They're building sort of a psychological profile of every person. Not necessarily, and I would not necessarily say that Facebook is nefarious. Like, it's all about making money. You don't make money by being a complete mustache twirling evildoer. They're trying to sell you ads, basically.
And that's not that. Well, that's a good point, because it's not that telling, right? Like, I get lots of ads for, like if I go on a particular tear, like on Trump or something, I'll get a bunch of ads that are like pro-conservative or something, because they're just looking for keywords or whatever. But like, as far as like how long you spend on something, there's no telling if you just like got up and went and took a shit, like, and just left it on a certain page, there's not that much actual information that they're gleaning.
No, but it's cumulative. So that one moment when you went up and took a dump isn't going to necessarily matter that much, but over time, all of those little details start to zero in on who you are as a person. And now, if all they're trying to do is sell you stuff, I guess it doesn't really bother me. Now, as long as you have the ability to be forgotten at some point, to start over, I guess. You can't do that with the government. And that, I think, is a big problem with systems like that. Oh man. Oh, so, this is a big,
this kind of ties into something else we've talked about before, about what it is to be like a self, identity and things like that. You just kind of brought something up that made me think about this. Like, why can't you just have a new identity? Why isn't it just easy to pick a new name and go by it and, reinvent yourself and start over? Like, you can go bankrupt and start over financially. Like, you can go back to school and start over on a career. Like, you can start over pretty much anything except like your name tied to your biological machine, like,
Yeah, that'll stick with you in perpetuity.
yeah. I mean, there's always like a paper trail connecting you somewhere, even if you're in WITSEC, like
aliases or whatever. Like, oh yeah, you used to be known by this name for this many years, and at this point you changed your name to that. So everything, your whole life is documented in that regard.
Well, we have a mutual friend. I won't use any one of his many names, but when he was traveling back into the country, he got held up once, and they interrogated him, and they knew all of his aliases, right down to some bullshit he used in high school, to some names that he used as kind of like let's say a stage name, in like real local community stuff. And that's crazy. Like, we're talking about like the other end of the country, coming back into the country. They knew all this stuff. They're like, wow, that's a little weird.
Yeah, I could, and like the law enforcement aspect, I can kind of see how that could be useful for certain things, but it could also be very bad. It all depends on who's calling the shots, I guess. That's the whole thing. It's like, you could say, well, this kind of goes back to the if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear sort of argument. That sure, in the context of right now, how everything is, let's say in the US, you can't speak for other places because there are places where this would be a much greater problem. But in the US, we have due process of law. You can expect, yeah, like more than most people can expect. Things are fairly public, and fairly open, relatively speaking. But and that makes sense if it, viewing things through that lens, the here and now, how things are right now. And you'd be like, well, what does it matter? Because obviously I'm innocent. But what if things change? What if a totalitarian regime took over? What if the US became entirely different? What if the US became more like, I don't know, Uganda or something like that one day? All that information is still available to the now Ugandan US government, which they can then use against you.
Yeah, I mean, I got to call slippery slope on that, because it's like, you could argue what ifs all day, but you can't really like live a guarded life based on what ifs, because if let's say we had none of that in place and everyone had the most private lives ever and Uganda took over, if they wanted that information, they could just come and get it. One way or another, they're going to get what they want.
Well, no, but
if that ever happened,
they're not going to be able to collect decades of all of that information in a moment. Like, sure, they could bust into your house and look at your porn collection or something like that. but they're not going to be able to have access to that unless they already do. And, the slippery slope kind of seems like it's kind of dismissing the idea that could happen, because in the US, we have it pretty good, because for a couple hundred years, things haven't really changed that much. But if you look through history, through time, through human experience, that is a definite abnormality. That's not how things work. things change at the drop of a hat. Regimes change at the drop of a hat. Like one day you're living in peace. Look at Iran. Look at how Iran was, you know,
or Egypt, like that.
Yeah, Egypt in the 70s versus today. Well, in fact, not even today, in the 80s. Like, how quickly did that change? You know, it could happen here. To think that it couldn't is self-deception. Like, and it really it creates the circumstances that allow for something like that to happen. We should always be careful of that.
Well,
and wary.
To be clear, I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm just saying it's a logical fallacy to like conduct your life as though it's going to happen when, like, statistically speaking, you know, like you said, we do have it pretty good. Like, I can't really think of any instances where you give the government an inch and they took the mile that people are constantly blathering about, you know, like, oh, this is going to happen next. Just you wait and see. But you wait and wait and wait.
Well, it's maybe more like a quarter mile, you know, or something like that. Yeah. Oh, man.
I mean, I honestly can't think of anything where, like, you know, a law changes and then all of a sudden they see that they could do a certain thing and get away with it, and they just keep going in that direction and like run away with it, because there are checks and balances. There are, you know, rotations of representatives and stuff, and through voting and all that stuff. Like, we do still have a pretty like robust system to prevent, you know, rampant corruption.
We do, you know? We do, but to assume that because that system exists that it must be functioning, I think is problematic. Just like, oh, hey, you know, I've just been told that this is how things are, so it must be okay. Well, how do you know? Have you verified for yourself? You know, do we know the state of things? I would argue we don't. And that's something that, like you said, you know, living your life stuck in a hole, looking out the windows, looking for people in the shadows and stuff, like, okay, that's not a good way to live. You really should just get out there and live your life. But being cautious is a good thing, especially when things are big, right? Like, if you're talking about a handful of change in your pocket, you're probably going to be not really that worried about it. But if you have $10,000 in your pocket, well, you're going to be a little more cautious. You know, it's like parachuting, right? If somebody's tying knots in cords on the ground for a tent, they're going to be like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. If it slips out, well, I'll just retie it. Well, you can't do that when you're plummeting to earth at terminal velocity. Like, so that's why they're extra careful. They pack and repack, and there's an entire process behind that to ensure that when that parachute deploys, it deploys.
So you don't get killed and re-killed.
Yeah, exactly. Like Hansen. And this kind of thing is sort of like that. I mean, your life is on the line in some cases. And it's not just the state we have to worry about. It's also bad actors all over the world. People trying to scam you and steal your identity and stuff like that. That happens all the time. And if we had a sponsor like NordVPN, this is the point we'd insert it, but we don't have a sponsor. So that would be a nice segue, wouldn't it?
So many okay songs. So many potential gems. It's amazing to think all this crap is in one collection. Love Songs by ALTAiR. Featuring songs like Control Alt Delete, and the classic Bitter Pill. And the PMRC's Nightmare, permanent solution to a permanent problem. Order one or all of the great volumes of beautiful love songs by ALTAiR on Amazon, Patreon.com, or iTunes. Please allow 3 to 4 business milliseconds for download to complete. No assembly required.
But that's the whole thing. Like well,
so I mean, this show is an interesting take on the whole Big Brother thing because, I mean, I've always kind of been of the philosophy of being an open book. I wrote a book, about my life, and I openly post things on social media and, do this show under my actual name and speak my mind freely, and you do the same. Whereas you have a little bit more of a guarded philosophy, yet you still do this show under your real name. So like there, like you were saying earlier, there probably is an archive somewhere of kitchen sink microscopy that, like could be used potentially to hurt us in some way, just based off of who we are as people and what we do and what we think and feel, and
but the things we've said,
the likelihood of that, like, I mean, I don't know,
probably not
like
in,
you put it on
not
a
in the
scale.
US. I'd say like it the odds of it happening in the US in our lifetime is pretty slim, but that doesn't mean we should say, well, it could never happen. Like, we don't know what it's going to be like 100 years from now. So keeping those systems in place, checking them and double checking them, making sure that everything is robust and reliable and secure is important. Like, because you can't get, you can't just like take a nap and get lackadaisical, like everything's fine because, well, it was fine like 10 years ago. Because there are people, and not just people, but systems that actively encroach on that, and are actively whittling away at that. So
I mean, to your point, like if I were to, like, if this show were popular enough to the point where I could be recognized in a foreign country, like somewhere in the Middle East, I would probably be instantly put to death for being an atheist, So I mean, that there is that sort of nature about it. Yeah, like it's dependent on your geography or political climate, or it's a variety of factors, right? But
well, yeah, it that's true. But now think about things like the so-called cancel culture, right? Like something you said, you tweeted like 10 years ago is suddenly brought up to the surface and used against you. You might be a totally different person now. Maybe what you said, you could have been drunk or something like that, and just like drunk tweeted something, and you think it's behind you. Because in the real world, like let's go back before the age of the internet. If you said something with your friends, it stays between your friends. They're the only ones that know it, and they could be like, well, I remember you said that, and you could be like, I never said that. But you can't deny a tweet that you tweeted or a video you posted on Instagram or something like that, or the stuff that's saved on the Internet Archive, like it'll remain forever. And I think that's kind of a problem.
I do agree that is a problem. Like the cancel culture part. Like there's a lot of people that will point to me and label me as like hyper liberal or, you know, whatever. But things like that, I detest. Like cancel culture pisses me off.
Well, and a lot of times it's taken out of context too.
Well, it's not only taken out of context, but you're taking one point about a person's entire like complex persona and life experience and like completely labeling them as like a douchebag for the rest of their life.
Yeah,
based on something that could have happened a lifetime ago.
Condensing the totality of somebody's existence down to like one paragraph.
Yeah.
Or something. It's like, okay,
yeah,
really?
I hate cancel culture. It's the dumbest shit in the world.
Like, well, and you know, it is. And all
well, it's a really peer pressure thing too.
Sure, it totally is. And it can definitely like ruin somebody's life, at not necessarily their life, but it can ruin their livelihood. You can get somebody fired or whatever.
Well, it could ruin their life, like to the point of like death threats and stuff, like
or suicide.
Yeah,
people killed themselves over stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. And like I get so pissed off when I see anybody actively partaking in cancel culture. Like I will jump down their throat.
Like, oh yeah, it isn't really fair because the other person doesn't have a chance to explain themselves or atone for whatever. It's like
it's not about defending with
the gut.
It's not about defending the action, or it's about defending the person as a whole, really.
Yeah. Well, and you got to allow for people to make mistakes or do something dumb from time to time. Everybody does. Like if you think, if you believe that you're exempt from doing dumb shit, well, you're an idiot. Honestly, everybody does dumb stuff. Now, imagine if instead of a bunch of people, a bunch of keyboard warriors on Twitter, it was a bunch of actual warriors with machine guns and tanks that came after you.
Yeah.
Things like that. I don't know if you've been following Hong Kong, or Taiwan. Whew, but that's the thing. Like, you could say it wouldn't happen here, but looking at the world, I don't think the United States is really unique as a culture. I think it's a human culture. It's a product of human behavior. And it's as susceptible as anywhere else, any other place. Yes, maybe we have a little bit more structured system that the checks and balances and all that stuff. But even that is not a perfect system. It's not a perfect way to prevent corruption. And eventually corruption will be at our doorstep. And what then? And that's kind of the whole, like, if you have nothing to hide kind of thing. Like, well, maybe you should be at least a little bit careful about what you say.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm just all like, I got my knickers in a twist about cancel culture.
You got your hackles up. Or feckles.
Heckles, schmeckles.
Well,
they're up and pointed at you, buddy.
we should do a video about that one, actually, because that I kind of feel the same way.
There's a whole episode about that. We should have a guest on, though, because if we feel the same way about something, we should totally like try to have the opposite end of the spectrum represented, because I it's not that I don't see certain merits in it. Like I don't think it's great to excuse that sort of behavior or anything, but to go to the extent that people do. And this really does tie in with Big Brother because, like a lot of it is like kind of like the points we've been driving home. There's missing context. There's missing, yeah, there's a lot of inference, but you just don't have all the information to accurately deduce what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well,
so it's like it's a tool, but it's something that you shouldn't lean too heavily on.
Well, I think there's nothing wrong with calling people out for bullshit, right? If someone says something dumb or something or insensitive or whatever,
let them explain it and or apologize about it. Go your own way,
And the whole point is not destroying somebody, but you want somebody to learn. Like, right. Oh, hey, I now see the error of my ways, right? I'll change. And people do change. They absolutely do. But things like cancel culture don't allow for that. It's like, no, you said this one wrong thing, and now you must be destroyed. And I don't think that. What is the benefit of that? How do you fix a problem by doing that?
Well, it's selfish in nature. It's virtue signaling. It's basically like, hey, look at how woke I am and how awesome a person I am. It's vanity.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
At the expense of somebody else, like an actual human being.
It's fucking bullying, and that's why I hate it so much. I hate bullies.
Yeah, of course. Hate them. Same here.
Oh, yeah, man. It is total bullying behavior. Like if you have never felt what it's like to have the totalitarian or the totality of totalitarian the totality of like everybody against you, like that is a very lonely and scary and depressing feeling.
Well, and I would argue that a lot of people that participate in these cancel movements haven't felt that, and they
obviously not.
And they don't have any empathy, like the ability to perceive the other side of things, to understand the humanity of the person that they're talking with or yelling at. I guess all caps.
That is a huge point that I've never really like stumbled on about cancel culture, is that it's really bullying behavior. And now that I've realized that, I'm just like, wow, I will never let myself partake in that, and I mean, I guess I should never say never. Like if there's like a cut and dry situation of like repeated behaviors or something, sure, okay, whatever. But like a one-time thing, like what Roseanne said, and all of a sudden they like killed off her character on her own show and like spun off a whole other show based on like a tweet that could have been interpreted in other ways. It's not like it was cut and dry.
Well, and that's kind of the whole idea of analyzing what you're dealing with, like thinking about it and trying to gain perspective. Like, is there another way I could see this? How many different interpretations can there be? But you get the Twitter mob who one person starts the fire, they light the match and they're like, yes, yeah, all right, we're out for blood, and they kind of like feed that sort of like, this is what this person meant. And it's like they don't even give them a chance to explain what they meant. And even if they do, that's not good enough. You're gonna die.
You know what? We should probably try to get canceled by cancel culture, because we'd probably ultimately end up more popular than we are now.
Ooh, man. That would be interesting.
Let's play the system against itself.
Hey. Well, and we'd have a pretty awesome episode out of that too. We'll do it like a science experiment too.
I'm sure we've already said plenty that'll get us canceled. So
Probably so. Yeah.
we'll leave it to the cancel culture folks who feel the need to really look higher and more mighty than we are to go dig through each and every episode of ours and subscribe. And so they don't miss a chance at canceling us.
Yeah, I'm sure they've been waiting on the fringes to clickety clack on the keyboards and type all the bad things they've been thinking about us. Oh man.
One of the through the Trump presidency and the COVID pandemic and stuff, there's been a lot of divide, but the one thing I have discovered is the amount of people that are willing to disagree and still be friends. And that's something that you probably wouldn't have had a light on exactly without all that turmoil. So like, and to some degree, like things like Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that really help you see that in people too. Like it also exemplifies the good in people. And exactly. On the flip side of Big Brother, it's like we as individuals are kind of our own big brother. Like we get to see what we see, right? Like what people project and the things that they don't mean to project, and we can evaluate that and interpret it as we will. And we're all Big Brother.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's lots of good points there, actually. I mean, I think this kind of goes back to the Heineken ad, which was kind of at the genesis point of this show, about like differences between people and understanding those differences, and sit down, have a beer, have a conversation, discuss your differences. And that's the whole thing. Like, you may not always see eye to eye, and if you're right, like you could convince somebody through a good discussion, but yelling at somebody is only going to convince them the other way. It'll drive people away. And that's the problem I have with stuff like cancel culture, is it's so arbitrary to begin with as far as the criteria, and it's like line in the sand as far as you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. And I see a problem with that. Like, isn't the point to change hearts and minds? Isn't the point to have discussions and gain understanding? And maybe the person you disagree with could actually be right. That doesn't mean your entire world comes crashing down. It just means that one thing you thought and maybe held dear might be in question. And questioning things is good. It's okay. It's all right. Like the point in my mind, at the end of the day, the point is discovering the truth, like getting at the heart of the matter. Like, what is the human existence, the human condition all about? Like, what is our purpose here? If it's nothing, well, then maybe we should make a purpose. And it should be noble. It should be something like, if an alien civilization discovers Earth 10,000 years from now, when Earth has nuked each other into oblivion and all our space stations and satellites are all gone, all record of us has been expunged, other than like what we've, monuments we've left, I would hope those monuments would be good.
Yeah. I mean, there is no purpose to exist by itself in a neutral sense. We just, it is what it is. We just exist. We as individuals create our purpose. And that's going to vary from person to person. That's why there is no answer to what is the meaning of life. It
Oh man,
varies.
that is very true. Good, very good point.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Man, just
Ooh,
imagine how epic season 4 is going to be. Like,
holy shit. And I think we're on like episode 8 now or something. Oh man, this is good. I feel like we're kind of going into sort of a mystical, pseudo mystical territory.
well,
Well, as we do, it started off as Big
well,
Brother, and we should probably
well,
kind of come back.
it ties together.
Mm-hmm.
It does tie together because what is the ultimate Big Brother? God, right?
Ooh, yeah.
Like people that believe in God tend to think that God is all knowing and all seeing, like to the point where like not even a camera could capture all the stuff that God knows.
Ooh. So why be concerned if the government knows those things?
Right. And how much does that really even stop anybody? Because, you have so many priests that get caught molesting kids and stuff. And it's like, they have to know that God sees that shit, right? I mean,
Well, and that does kind of call into question, do they even believe those things?
exactly.
But man, I was gonna say something
I mean,
about sisters or something like that, but never mind. Oh, that's going to be used
kind of
against me. I'm going to get canceled in the future.
it just shows like how much the human condition really, on a base level, gives a shit about Big Brother, right? Like you're just gonna do what you want to do, and if people don't like it or people find out about it, you might be embarrassed, you might get canceled, like you might get killed by an angry mob, but that's a gamble, and life is a gamble. I mean,
that's very true. Well, and it would make me think. It makes me think too. Like, why do people do things if they hold certain ideals so dear that there is some overseer, a watcher, like watching them? You know, what force is able to overcome that fear so much that they're willing to do something stupid or something that defies what they believe? Like I don't know if there's actually an answer to that question.
that would take another beer.
Fortunately, I happen to have an unopened beer right here.
God, I'm on my last beer. There's only half a beer left.
Oh man, you're unprepared. Well, that's okay. I mean, we're like about 50 minutes in ish.
I mean, this went in a very meta direction.
Yes.
From, like I did not expect, and after more than 2 years of doing these episodes, I should have expected this, but like it just goes to show you that you can have a whole lot of information about something and still get surprised.
Oh, yeah.
So Big Brother, they might have a lot of info, but they still don't know you.
Well, and that, in fact, that's demonstrated by, this kind of goes all the way back to kind of in the beginning where you were talking about detective work, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I had mentioned the thing about technology being a crutch. I almost said crush. Yeah.
Technology's so hot.
Oh yes. Oh, this is gonna turn into a. Do I have to play the Pornhub intro? Oh man. Now I don't remember what I was gonna say.
Technology being a crutch.
Earlier than that,
Oh
shit. more beer. Yeah. Nope. I completely lost my train of thought.
Damn. That was
It'll
probably the meaning of life right there.
It'll come back again. Unfortunately, I can't rewind live video, so I can't see what I was talking about there.
Was there any other aspect of the Big Brother argument that we didn't really capture? I feel like we're missing something.
I feel the same thing too. And I feel like it was that point that I lost a second ago. Dang it.
I mean, we started off kind of talking about cameras everywhere and capturing things, and we went into social media and the things that we, volunteer to databases around the world, perhaps. But I mean, we kind of briefly touched on identity and how this stuff like ties to our being, right? And cancel culture and how that like affects us in perpetuity and in retrospect, like,
ooh, the identity.
It feels like there's an element missing from the discussion.
It does, but I can't put my finger on what it is. Oh man. This is the point where if this were a live stream, viewers could add their own ideas to the mix.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So in the 1984 theme, right? That's the whole Big Brother colloquial term, right?
Yeah. It's kind of where
there was also, there was also like, wasn't that where like double speak and stuff like that came from, or am I thinking of Brave New World?
No, it did. Like Newspeak and things like that. Yeah.
So I guess there is that aspect of Big Brother, of the propaganda, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and propaganda factored heavily into 1984.
Yeah.
To perpetuate the war between the continents.
So it's not just about what you project, but it's about what you're fed.
Yes. That is a very good point.
That might be the missing element, I think, that we haven't really touched on.
Well, and the idea, our view of the world is kind of myopic. Depending on where you go, if there's echo chambers online, there's YouTube channels that you watch, media, whatever news channels you prefer to watch, and they all feed you a very narrow slice of reality, but they don't give you everything. And they probably can't. I don't blame them necessarily. I mean, as a business, you kind of have to be niche.
Ask.
Yeah, you have to be a niche business. Like you can't, if you're a bakery, you can't make everything. You maybe you focus on like donuts or muffins or cupcakes or something like that, and that's how everything else is.
Not everything can be kitchen sink microscopy.
That's true. Yeah. but the thing is, like, there's a whole nother world out there. There's a lot more going on that we, like, most people don't even know is going on. And if you focus on these narrow channels, you start to kind of paint an internal mental picture of the world. Like, I remember my mom used to watch like these crime videos and watch the news and stuff, and she thought the world was like a completely scary place full of all kinds of stuff happening all the time. And I'm like, Mom, it's all right. Like, for the most part, things are okay. And
Mhm.
I never told her that my friend and I used to walk around Hilltop in the middle of the night in the 90s. But we did. And, I honestly didn't feel concerned at all about that. But, Hilltop is notorious the world over. One time I was talking to this girl in Arizona at a bar, and she asked where I came from, and I was like, oh, Tacoma. And she's like, Tacoma? Oh, geez. Like, so Tacoma has a reputation of being very dangerous, but it
Mhm.
really isn't. And that's the whole thing. Like, it's the big picture sort of thing.
Oh
Like,
yeah, like I traveled the country twice in the past year, and I reveled in the differences that I saw. And when I was living in Memphis, which by the way used to be, like the murder capital of the world, and is still like in the top like 5, I think, of like, crime ridden cities in the country. I didn't see a whole lot of crime. Like,
yeah.
for something that's like so highly rated and touted as this, like, if you walk outside you're gonna get shot sort of thing, like, no, you're not. Like, it's
Well, yeah,
pretty safe.
exactly. It's like the odds are pretty slim. Um, thinking about one of my favorite film production crews, Ramon Film Productions. They exist in Uganda, and it's a low budget action movie film production crew. I recommend everybody.
Uganda.
Yeah, everybody should look them up. But the thing is, so they filmed one of the films during a civil war in Uganda. They were
Jeez.
on one side of a wall filming an action movie, while on the other side there were like a bunch of soldiers, and they still filmed it. Like, everybody came away unscathed. Like, it's perspective, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. That's intense.
Yeah.
But
Uganda's on my list of places to go when I
but
travel.
but going back to the big brother aspect of propaganda, like, who's feeding what to whom? Like, do, because this really starts to tread into the mustache twirling territory, doesn't it? Like,
It definitely does. And
you have to kind of ascribe a bad guy to it, right? Like,
well, and that could actually
or a good guy.
work against that. Well, do things have to be bad or good necessarily?
Could you have good propaganda?
Well,
Maybe you could.
maybe. I don't know. Ooh, man.
If you portray things to be better than they are, will the human psyche work the exact same way and
Well,
think,
well,
like the Memphis effect, right? Like, everyone thinks you're just going to walk outside and get shot. Well, if you say, like, this is the best rated city in the world, are you going to think you're going to have prosperity and good luck there? Like,
I don't know that anywhere is going to be like perfect or completely
right. But
terrible.
I'm just saying the propaganda tool could be used for good, I suppose.
Sure. And, like you said, like, who's feeding you what information? That's one aspect. But, you're only listening. If you tune to the radio, it's just people saying stuff or some songs playing or whatever. Like, you don't have
Yeah.
to react to that. It's on you. You, the interpreter of that information, should be able to interpret it critically. And I think that's the missing puzzle piece in this, as far as like control and people being manipulated and stuff like that. Like, here's the thing. If somehow tomorrow, well, it wouldn't be tomorrow, but in what, 2020, before the US elected a flat earther president. And they were like, I hereby declare the earth is flat. Okay, they can say that all they want, but that doesn't make it true. And most people are going to be like, yeah, right. You know, so why is that so obviously nonsense? But less like smaller things are accepted by people.
I just had another revelation, like positive propaganda. We call that advertising. I mean, that's really all it is, right?
Yeah.
Like
PSAs.
because, yeah, I mean, and that all has to be within the realm of possibility, like something believable. Like if we had a flat earther president, yeah, we'd laugh him off the podium because, you know, most people understand that that is total hogwash.
Yeah.
You know, but if they were out there like saying, you know, this is the greatest country in the world or something, well, it's like that's a little bit easier to swallow. But
yeah,
is it true?
Well, and like I said about things that are less than extravagant, you know, these like PSAs and stuff. Sure, you probably don't want to smoke crack. Probably bad for you. But the ads, the propaganda behind that, you know, this is your brain on drugs. I'm sure everybody in Gen X, you probably remember this too.
Oh yeah.
The splat in the egg and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is not your brain on drugs. That is not how it works, and that isn't a gross oversimplification. And it actually does more harm than good, because I mean, basically you can knock down most of those arguments very, very easily. And sure, it's good intentions, but good intentions don't make things good.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Not to get all sciencey, but yeah, like the brain on drugs egg thing, like you denature the proteins in an egg, you can't renature them. But like with drugs, like yeah, you might get like pretty fucking foggy in the head, but eventually it goes back to normal, and you don't do that with eggs. So
well,
bad
and
propaganda.
Here's the thing, like, if technically speaking, pretty much everybody who's watching this video right now uses drugs of some sort.
I don't use any drugs.
Well, if you drink coffee, you're a drug user. You know, if you use aspirin, you're a drug user. Like, and this whole, like, this is something that like drives me up the wall. Prescription drugs, oh, they're totally okay, but like street drugs, they're totally not. It's like, really? Like,
Yeah.
seriously? Do you really think that's the case?
And we changed the definition of prescription and street drugs over time, because cocaine used to be prescribed. Well, I mean, it's still sometimes prescribed. That's why cocaine is Schedule 2 and not Schedule 1. But you know, like it's still considered a street drug.
But isn't marijuana Schedule 1 still?
Yeah, but that's because there's no medicinal, like, prescription value.
Well, wait a minute. Medicinal versus prescription. Those are two different things.
Well, yes and no. Like, yeah, it's mincing words a little bit, but
then why is that the deciding factor, I guess?
I mean, it's just the criteria they decided to come up with and the box it happens to fit in.
And that's fine if you're doing experiments for engineering reasons, but people have been shot over this shit.
Yeah.
People have been imprisoned indefinitely over this shit. Like, Oh, wait. Okay. I'm not going to get on my soapbox over this. But I think this is a good point that should probably be talked about at some point in the future.
Yeah, we should definitely do, like, I mean, like our second episode, I think, was about the war on drugs, and we haven't really done like a drug episode since then. So we're probably due.
Yes, we are, because it's been kind of a long time. And a
Yeah.
lot's happened too. Decriminalization.
Well, and like ketamine
states.
ketamine treatments have become a thing.
Yeah.
And how do you say it? Psilocybin,
Psilocybin, yeah.
Psilocybin, yeah, like things like that are being looked at for depression and various other disorders and stuff like that, and that's huge.
Oh yeah, well, and this kind of connects to everything too, that with all the PSAs and the DARE program and everything, and just say no and whatnot, everybody kind of thought that like all these things are super bad. Everything goes in the same bucket of badness. It's all bad, does harm. And now
I was totally brainwashed by that.
Well, yeah, and now we're realizing, hey, you know, there's actually something here. These things have some beneficial properties, like worth exploring. Maybe not in the form that people recreationally use them. No, I don't have a problem with recreational use.
Yeah.
Whatever, knock yourself out. I don't fucking care. But you should not get shot. You should not go to jail. Cops shouldn't like look in your car for this stuff. Like, that's the problem I have with it. It's like, if you have aspirin in your car, nobody cares. But if you have cocaine or crack, actually, yeah, you're going to prison, and maybe you're going to get shot. Well, that's bullshit. It's totally bullshit.
Just say it's cut with aspirin, then it's all cool.
Oh yeah, well, and it's kind of connects with the cancel culture sort of thing, like the black and white, like, oh, you know, the bad guys, all the bad guys, they're these drug dealers and drug users, and everything's, you know, we got to treat them all the same and apply the same processes to everybody. Well, aren't these people human beings, like thinking human beings? And I mean, we already talked about like the mental aspects of things that about addiction and stuff. Well, we should probably talk about that again now that I think about it.
Yeah, there's a whole other avenue we should go down on that, and that should really be a live episode, because I think that's something that everyone has strong opinions on.
Well, and it really bothers me that like somebody being addicted to substance A is totally fine, but substance B is worthy of the worst possible like repercussions that you can dole out.
Yeah,
it makes no sense. Like,
yeah,
we're dealing with psychological processes here. It's the same thing. It comes from the same place. It doesn't matter if it's alcohol or cocaine or heroin or meth or whatever. It goes back to the same place in your brain. And that even in itself might be worth exploring, I would say. In fact, that might unlock a lot of understanding about the human condition, our place in the universe, and maybe our origins too. There is the theory that LSD is the thing that made civilization.
Interesting. What does God need with acid?
Is it weird that I could actually picture that scene from Star Trek V? Oh my god. Oh man.
Wow. Well, I think we've got some good episode ideas to branch off on.
We might have imbibed a bit of beer at this point, and I should probably get rid of this body armor. It's starting to get really hot.
Yeah, and my bladder is pretty full. My back teeth are floating.
Yeah, if there was like aliens like shooting acid on me, that would have been a great scene.
Now that you've removed your armor, the NSA is going to bust in.
Yeah, exactly. That would figure. Oh man, there's so many points that we didn't really get to. But I think we covered so much stuff and brought up some really interesting things to discuss. And discuss you should. Don't cancel people. If you disagree with somebody, hey, you invite them over for a beer. Have a beer, have a conversation. You know, if you disagree, it's all right. Like, not everybody's going to agree. The thing that separates the people, different people from each other, is life experience. So if someone else doesn't have the same experience as you do, you can't expect them to believe the way you do about the things you believe. You have to convince them and be open at all times to the idea that maybe you might yourself be convinced. And that's good. That is a good thing. Like I used to be, I was raised in a Christian Republican family, all this stuff. And now I'm like anything but. And it's because being open-minded and having conversations with people. And like, I still appreciate that. Like those experiences I value. But I can't possibly go back to thinking that way.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Well, I believe my bladder says, thanks for deep sink diving with us.
How does it? Oh, wait, never mind. Nope. Don't show people. We're going to get demonetized. Yeah, I think that's a good point to end on. I think we droned on long enough. Although I still feel like this topic deserves some more discussion at some point.
Definitely.
But I think we should probably do a drug episode again. Like you said, I mean, geez, it was like episode 2 or 3, or 2 was like the drug one, and then prostitution. Man, we came out with gloves on that one. Oh man. Like, ugh.
Well, hang out for the song that is probably tickling your ears right now.
Slowly fading in. Yes.
Slowly I creep, step by step, turn by turn. Burning fuse, growing shorter, sulfuric smell, burning mortar, twisted persona, pulse the trigger, wiping out the leader figure, left cities, ashes and dust. First mistake, investing your trust. Cataclysmic, rise and fall. Hope crumbles like the Berlin Wall. I rise hard to my rise.